Criminal Justice Committee to order. Start with roll call, please.
Mr. Hess,
Present.
Mr. Byrne, Mr. Byrne, Mr. Lear, Mr. Legess, Mr. Olthoff, Mr. Snipes, Ms. Dunbar, Mr. Ritter, Ms. Parker, Mr. Fairfield, Mr. Carrico, Mr. Eckhoff, Mr. Smith, Ms. Zuccolo, Mr. Wheeler. We have a quorum.
I have two people for public comment this morning. First, we'll start with Kim Bacon of Kankakee.
Good morning. Most of you know me. I am Kim Bacon, a member of Connect Kankakee. But today I'm not representing anybody except myself. I'm speaking just my own opinions. I'm here to comment about the immigrants here at the Jerome Combs Detention Center. I watched the criminal justice meetings on YouTube, and last month I believe some information may have been misunderstood. I wanted to inform Mr. Snipes, I don't know if he's here, that ICE takes these people into custody and not police officers. So I thought that needed to be pointed out. These people are taken from their homes that some of them own, as well as their places of employment. There is a horrifying separation of children from their parents happening all over the country and, of course, at the border with this deplorable conditions. And at the last criminal justice meeting, Sheriff Downey gave numbers of the ICE detainees with no charge being between 20 and 40%, because it varies as people come and go. Mr. Olthoff asked the question, and I quote, of the 20 to 40% that are not criminals, are they coming from employer raids? Those aren't just traffic offenses or anything like that. And then the sheriff explained to you all that the ICE classifications that he gets from them, one of them being NC, meaning no charge, and illegal entry. He explained that coming into the country illegally twice was an automatic deportation. Then Mr. Olthoff specifically said, so that is what the 20 to 40% is, all people who have entered the country illegally more than once? And I think that may have been misunderstood, as there are detainees who are being deported for minor traffic offenses who ICE picks up from the courthouses, or as well as undocumented people who are working, and ICE raids their places of employment. I don't think Sheriff Downey has any idea nor authority to determine who ICE actually sends to him. We have deported from the Jerome Combs Detention Center a veteran who had served his country in Afghanistan and had offenses like many other veterans. I've stayed in touch with Miguel Perez's family. And it is a sad, sad story. I'm not going to go over it again here. I've mentioned it several times. But I digress, because I want to speak about employer raids, as one happened at AA Flanders in Momence about 2 weeks ago. And most of you are familiar with what happened in Mississippi last week. This involves a traumatic offense to innocent children who will live with this trauma the rest of their lives. It's not a humane way to deal with a problem that Washington cannot or will not solve with comprehensive immigration reform. Nor is it a positive way for our county to benefit. In this country, we have 8 million undocumented employees, which is about 5% of the total workforce. If anyone wants information as to where I'm getting these facts, I'll be glad to provide that to you. The fact is that we call these people illegal and even fraudulent for working. Normally, a reference to crimes of victims are related to violence of some sort or a major financial harms, hence the other victims. Not one single person taking a low-paying job from an American company. Now, the reference there to fraud is true as far as it goes. But that again goes to these American companies who fraudulently hire undocumented workers. And they do it over and over again. This is a market economy. There's companies with accountants and lawyers and executives who know better and are rarely charged nor convicted of any crimes. That would include President Trump's hotels and golf courses. These companies come back for more and more. But last year, only 11 people in the entire United States were prosecuted for hiring undocumented immigrants. The feds did not prosecute the entire corporations or companies. Now, that is quite a contrast. 8 million to 11. It's a contrast. So if we're going to call undocumented, low-paying workers fraudulent, and we're going to sit here and say undocumented is undocumented, then we're going to have to prosecute the entire corporations who continue to hire the undocumented. The law is the law. So my question is, who's going to prosecute A.A. Flanders in moments? I wanted to say that it is a politically hot topic, and yet the country is so divided, and my purpose here is to bring about solution, not any more division. We have enough division on every news channel, on all over Twitter and Facebook and everything. And I'm here as a Christian. Actually, I wanted to report about Highlights magazine. That's for children, the one that's in all the doctors' pediatricians' offices. And I wanted to tell you that they made a statement yesterday. They do not wish to make a political statement. I'm not wanting to make a political statement. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm just a Christian. So I wanted to say that I like what their statement was, and it highlights our core belief is that children are the world's most important people. In light of the reports of the living conditions of detained children and threats of further deportation and family separation, here's a statement from our CEO, Ken Johnson. As a company that helps children become their best selves, curious, creative, caring, and confident, we want kids to understand the importance of having moral courage. Moral courage means standing up for what we believe is right and honest and ethical, even when it's hard. Our company's core belief stated each month in Highlights magazine is that children are the world's most important people. This is a belief about all children. With this core belief in our minds and hearts, we denounce the practice of separating immigrant children from their families and urge our government to cease this activity, which is unconscionable and causes irreparable damage to young lives. This is not a political statement about an immigration policy. This is a statement about human decency, plain and simple. This is a plea for recognition that these are not simply the children of strangers for whom others are accountable. This is an appeal to elevate the inalienable right of all children to feel safe and to have the opportunity to become their best selves. We invite you, regardless of your political leanings, to join us in speaking out against family separation and to call for more humane treatment of immigrant children currently being held in detention facilities. Write, call, or email your government representatives. I'm here to speak just about my government here in Kankakee County. And to say that I work with Agape Community Outreach Mission, and the Hispanic Partnership and the NAACP, and I am doing all of that and asking God to give me moral courage to sit here and speak and tell you that I'm not okay with it every night as I go to bed. I'm not okay with it. There are children that have been separated from their families right here in Kankakee County by ice raids, not only at A.A. Flanders, but also at Dole Pineapple. And I get this information from undocumented people who can't go to the grocery store and use food stamps because they can't get that kind of stuff. They come to food pantries or places where identification is not required. And I just wanted to say, in a positive note, I wanted to say I would like to be looking toward resolutions, like to form a committee to work together to say, is there a way to make an addendum to the ICE contract so that we don't take any non-criminals? That we take a stand in Kankakee morally that says, no, we're not going to participate in immoral or inhumane treatment of children. Possibly we could work to create policies to provide more correct information of the demographics right here in Kankakee County. We can find a better way. I don't know what it is, but I do think rather than moralize or politicize, possibly we could just come together and meet individually or as a special group, or I'm making any kind of suggestion for a solution to the problem. Thank you for listening to me.
Okay, next is Reverend Doug Zimmerman.
Thank you. I'd like to just take a moment to talk about the vigil that was held outside this complex on Sunday. I first want to thank Sheriff Downey for having the deputies at the event to keep us safe and to be able to have everything well handled. Some of us don't know that there were co-sponsors at the event. Some of the co-sponsors, or there were 16 co-sponsors that helped provide for the event. They were TURA, the Rabbinic Call for Human Rights, the National Council of Jewish Women, Chicago North Shore Section, If Not Now, Chicago, Illinois Coalition for Immigrant Refugee Rights, Jewish Voice for Peace, Chicago, J Street, Chicago, Jewish Reconstructionist Congregation, Evanston, Avodah, the Jewish Council on Urban Affairs, the Illinois Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism, Connect Kankakee, Bend the Arts Jewish Action, Champaign-Urbana, the Interfaith Community for Detained Immigrants, JCFS Chicago, Chicago Religious Leadership Network of Latin America, and the Illinois Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism. This event was held on the high holy day of Tisha B'Av, a day that recognizes all of the tragedies that have taken place throughout the history of the world. We were surprised and delighted to see NBC News Chicago there too to cover the event. Secondly, I want to thank those who have provided information for us as far as numbers of what ICE is, whether we call it revenue or the figures received from ICE every year. And Chairman Wheeler and the sheriff and others have told us that there's $12 million, and I appreciate that. But being in a leadership capacity in different ways throughout my life, transparency is a big issue that helps clarify different things. And we are told, find $12 million for us, and then we don't have to house ICE detainees. I would question whether that's a true figure or not, because we don't have any offset figures. Most of you know, if you run a business, that there is income, but there are costs too. And we've never been able to determine the cost, to know what the cost is. What are the detainees? What is the net cost of detaining people for ICE? And finally, I just want to say, I know I appreciate what Kim said about reaching out for one another. We do reach out to other people, and yesterday I was not able to be at the county board meeting because I was in a meeting with the U.S. Representative Robin Kelly. She invited people of faith, or the faith leaders in her district, to come together, and we were there and talked about events that are happening in her district. And Kim and Dave and I are honored to be invited to meet with her next Monday with the Latino Advisory Task Force. So Connect Kankakee is reaching out to try and bring resolution to some of the issues that we see as important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is the approval of the minutes from the July 10th, 2019. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Burns, second by Mr. Carrico. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Chief Judge, and after this, we're going to have to amend the agenda. The coroner has another meeting he has to be at 8:15, so.
Thank you, Chairman House. Good morning, everyone. I announced the last time I was here that Gus Regas, our public defender, was retiring, and that's effective at the end of this month. I want to publicly thank Mr. Regas for serving these last 4 years. Gus was able to ensure that the essential work of the Public Defender's Office continued during a time of serious financial hardship, as you all know. And on behalf of the judges in Kankakee, I want to publicly thank Gus for his service. I announced that we had begun a search for his replacement the last time I was here, and I'm happy to announce today that that search has ended. I'm pleased to announce that Attorney Ed Pentwick has been selected to be the next public defender in Kankakee County. And Ed is back in the back row.
Would you stand, Ed?
He's here with us today. Some of you may know Mr. Pentwick has nearly 30 years of experience here in our justice system in Kankakee County. He's been working in the PD's office for the last 9 months. I'm sure he'd like to get to know all of you today or in the future, and I expect he'll be actively involved in the meetings starting next month. That's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for the judge?
Mr. Chairman, may I be excused?
Yes, you may.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to take a motion to amend the agenda. Mr. Legess, second by Mr. Byrne. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Mr. Gessner. In your package, you have a copy of his monthly report and the monthly receipts of money. I would take a motion to approve that by Mr. Legess, second by Mr. Lear. Comments on your report, sir?
I think they're really self-explanable. The total number of calls we had in our office was 94. I'm reading off of this sheet right here. Autopsies are 8 for the month of July. We're holding a little bit lower than we did last year, so that's good. Other than that, we're just about all up to date with all of our cases too.
The undetermined from December, is that waiting for toxicology yet?
That's waiting for toxicology, correct?
Any questions on the report?
Along with some other reports too.
Yeah. Or the income report? All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Just real quickly on our OD status right now in the county is we've really been holding our ground on that. We have 16 overdose cases at this point. We're 2 down from last year, and but 22 down from the 17 when we had the big year. Our average age has gone up, basically to 43 years of age. The youngest is 21, and the oldest is 72 overdoses. And the other interesting stat there, the male was basically a large percentage of the overdoses, and now the females are tied with the males. Other than that, basically the drugs now that are out on the streets, heroin is still out there, but your fentanyl is probably the number one along with prescription drugs. But we're seeing a decline. The only thing I got last week, something about crystal meth is now coming back into our area. And the county just below us, Iroquois, is one of the high in the red of crystal meth right now. So if you know it's surrounded us, it's going to be our problem probably soon. Other than that, I'll take any questions that you have towards our office. If not,
Any questions?
just want to say one thing is I want to thank Colton Eckhoff and Tinker Parker for on July 27th in Moments, the prescription take-back became 50 pounds of prescriptions in two big boxes. To get those off the street, those are remarkable because prescription drugs are now rising. Also, thank you for who also was there along with Colton and Tinker was the Sheriff Downey, State's Attorney Jim Rowe, Chris Kerner from KMAG, my Chief Deputy Eric, and myself. We were happy to be there, and thank you for what you put on there. It makes a big difference. So, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you for doing that.
Yep. Next up is the Circuit Clerk, Ms. Cianci. In your package, you have a copy of her monthly report. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Eckhoff, second by Ms. Sekulo. Morning, Sandy.
Good morning.
Comments on your two reports?
No, nothing too extraordinary this month. Collections is the state's attorney collection. We aren't really sure. I talked to Desiree a couple times about that report. We aren't really sure why last month was a dip in the progress, but we made up for it in July big time. So about a $10,000 difference. So that's good news. And if you look at the bold, below the bold in the state's attorney, you can see that at this time last year we were at 57,000, and this year we're at 94.5. So that's quite an increase. And then the same with the month, going across all of the years, we're pretty much right in the same realm with the Harris & Harris collections at this time as we are every year in the past. So that's pretty good.
Mr. Smith.
Sandy, the Harris & Harris, do we pay them, or they just get a percentage?
What happens is when we collect money in our office, we add the 30% to whatever that amount is that the person is paying. We don't have that tacked on initially. We just wait until they pay. So if they have a $50 payment and they owe $3,000, then we just add the 30% to the $50. And then if you look on my big report, the disbursement report, you'll see what we sent Harris. So this last month we sent them $13,753.69. So that's from the money that we've collected. Then we add the 30%, and then that's their check. Now, in the meanwhile, they're also collecting at their location, and they send us a check too. So we have electronic files going back and forth, and so they know what they collected, and then they send us money, and it's just it's a back and forth thing.
Have the new waiver process went in effect yet?
It has gone into effect, but I didn't have anything worthwhile reporting yet. I don't think. I kind of did some research yesterday, and nothing was super significant, so I just decided to wait a couple of months and then report on it to see where we are.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions on the report? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Computerization update.
So the Traffic and Criminal Assessment Act went into effect July 1st, and I think it went off pretty much without too big of a hitch. We didn't have many hiccups along the way, and so that's okay. My staff and the two vendors that we work with our case management systems with Tyler and Courtview, and my people, we had to stop everything with our e-filing progress because we had to concentrate on getting the Traffic and Criminal Assessment Act stuff all lined up. So now that that's done, they're going to get back on track. So hopefully, Paula's been doing the testing. So what happens is we've got all our codes built into the case management system, and then they test a few cases to see if everything connects. And then when they find out what isn't working yet, what the bugs are, then they send the report back to that vendor. So it's been bouncing back and forth. It's a long process, Paula said. So, she didn't really have a date when she thought this would be finished, but we're getting there. So there's forward movement anyway. So that's about it with that.
Questions on the computerization update?
Okay.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Rowe, State's Attorney. In your package, you have a copy of his grand jury report and the grand jury statistics report for July of 2019. Take a motion to combine and approve. Mr. Carrico, second by Ms. Parker. Comments on your reports, Jim?
This last grand jury, they returned 50 true bills. That's about the most we've had in quite some time. I don't know whether that's good or bad, but it's probably an unfortunate record, at least over the last couple of years. And you can see, second again to possession or controlled substance violations are the domestic violence cases.
Questions? Questions? All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried.
Only other thing, that mentoring program, I really hope that some of you will consider signing up as mentors. If you go to our website or just send me an email, we will enroll you. I can't impress upon you enough, we need this program to work. It's the only type of mentoring program in the nation that is geared towards specifically court-involved youth. So it's a pilot project of sorts for AmeriCorps. We were very lucky to get this funding. We have a lot of kids in the system. We need to get them mentors. We need to get them paired up with individuals. So if you would please consider doing that. It's a small investment at an intervention level so we can prevent them from ending up in the adult system. So please give it some consideration. Thanks.
Thanks. Next up was the public defender. Ed, do you have any? Use the microphone, please. Yeah, why don't you come up so everybody gets a good view of you? In your package, you have a copy of the monthly report. I'll take a motion to put it on file by Mr. Fairfield, second by Mr. Legess. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Hess. My name is Ed Panawick. I've worked with many of you throughout the course of the decades. As Chief Judge Kramer said, I'm now, or as of September 1st, I'll be the Chief Public Defender of Kankakee County. I anticipate many changes within my office and many requests in the future. Today I'm just enjoying the moment. I got the word yesterday. I do look forward to working with Mr. Rowe regarding all the issues that pertain to the criminal justice system within our county. We've had minimal talk, but we have talked about certain issues for the future. But at this point, I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Rowe.
No. I wanted to say, I neglected to say when I was up there, I meant to. Congratulations, Ed. I look forward to working with you as public defender.
Okay, we'll take a vote on the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is probation. Mr. Latham. In the package, you have a copy of his monthly report Take a motion to approve that. Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Eckhoff. You all right?
Yeah, thank you. Right inside my knee there. Good morning. Just the report, as you can see, just nothing unusual. We had over 2,500 successful contacts last month, giving us about 17,500 year to date. 45 investigations and 265 drug tests. And the only stat that's stands out to me is there's only 3 in custody at River Valley right now. So that's a little bit lower than normal. But any questions on that?
Questions on that?
And
On the, oop,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
it says 1,846 for the test for the year.
Yes.
Are we still getting them at a discount price, or?
Not a discount, but not a discount. They're about $6 to $8 a piece.
Okay.
Some
I
of
know-
it's grant, some of it's paid from 3 different accounts.
Okay.
So it's not.
Any other questions on the report? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And just 2 quick things. Both of them I talked about last month. Our allocation from the state, I said, was increasing. We received that last week. It did increase about $329,000 for our current reimbursement of our current staffing level. All right, so it's not tied to additional positions. There's also the pretrial positions that are out there that I was hoping to hear about by now. 3 to 4 fully funded positions we could get from the state to start our pretrial program. We have that program ready. We're ready to go as soon as we get the word. Obviously, we have some meetings we have to have with the judges, with Jim, with the corrections to get it going, but hopefully they'll be up and running. And I'll keep you posted. We're about a month and a half into the state fiscal year, so I'm hoping to hear something real quick here. So, that's it.
Questions?
And congratulations, Ed.
Next up is the sheriff. And you should have received by email, and in the packet there's a copy of his report. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Legess, second by Ms. Sekulo. Comments, sir, on your report?
Good morning. First, a couple things. First of all, Ed, congratulations. I know that we've both been with the county quite a while, and we've worked together a long, long time. I hope for those of you that don't know him, when you do get to know him, it's on a personal level, not on a professional level, that he's representing you. So, especially now as a public defender. One other quick thing. I know Mr. Seroy mentioned it yesterday, and I just want to reiterate it, that school is starting now. There are a number of schools starting mostly next week. There are a couple starting this week, but school buses will be out. Kids will be out. Some excited to go to school, some not so excited. Most of the parents will be very excited that their kids are in school. And there will also be new drivers, young kids who have gotten their driver's license over the past, since school got out back in May and June. So you've got some inexperienced drivers out there. So just be aware of your surroundings. Be aware that things might not go as fast as we all want them to go. And hopefully let's make it through this school year with no accidents and issues. And, and people don't realize this, but when you are convicted of passing a school bus with a stop arm out, and there's a conviction, there is an automatic 3-month suspension of your driver's license. So the penalties, some would think are severe. I really don't think they're that severe. I think they should be more. But as it is now, it's 3 months suspension of your driver's license, which makes it awfully hard to get to work. So as far as the report, a couple things that I'd like to mention early on, just so this committee knows where we're at numbers-wise. And this is a trend dating back 3 years, and I've mentioned this numerous times about the increase that we have in our U.S. Marshal population. Back in 2017, we averaged 156 U.S. Marshal inmates. Back in 2017, we averaged 113 ICE detainees. And back in 2017, we averaged 233 local inmates. In 2018, those numbers increased. The U.S. Marshals went from 156 on average, and remember, these are averages, from 156 to 190. ICE detainees increased from 113 on average to 156 on average. And locally, we increased from 233 to 255. So needless to say, the numbers of inmates and detainees that we have next door increased substantially between 2017 and 2018. In 2019, currently we are averaging 227 U.S. Marshal inmates. So that's a significant increase over the last 3 years. Our ICE detainees have actually dropped from 156 to 151 on average in 2019. And locally, we went from 255 to 267 local inmates. So all the numbers seem to be increasing with the exception of ICE. And again, that's just the number of who is coming here. And so our numbers, that's something that Chicago decides. Questions on those numbers? Our transports, I want to give you a little bit of information. We talk about transports all the time because obviously vehicles are important for us being able to do our job. Most importantly, we want to keep our staff and those inmates and detainees that are transported in those vehicles safe. In our budget, we budget nothing for vehicle fuel. And I know that sounds crazy because obviously with the number of transports, and if you look on your report, you'll see that there are well over 1,000 transports that we do so far through July. But we budget nothing for fuel. Our reimbursement from the feds, our expenses so far for transports has been $22,666.68. Our reimbursement for mileage, which is reimbursed by the feds, is $48,976. So we actually have been reimbursed more in fuel than we've spent. So that's by about $26,000. And projected out, that number will probably be somewhere around $45,000 at the end of the year. So just to keep you aware, in case somebody looks at our budget and says, well, there's nothing in there for fuel, and why is there a positive number? That's why. Questions on that? On the sworn side, the glaring number for me is our fatal accidents out on the roadways. Understand that these fatals are not all on county roads. However, they are within the county. Through July of 2018, last year, we had 9 total. Through July 2019, we had 10. We have 10. So we're actually we are actually more than last year at this time. The unfortunate part is there have been 2 fatals so far in August, and this is what, the 12th or 13th, the 14th. And we've already had 2 this month, so that number is actually up to 12, and it will reflect on the next report in September. Questions on that? And I know I talk a lot about inspections because we are inspected a lot, and credit to our corrections staff for going through these because they are not easy. And I know that unfortunately when you have high profile things that happen regardless of where they're at, sometimes whatever agency that happens to, whether it's police or corrections, it gives those agencies, all agencies in law enforcement, a black eye. And I'm referring to what happened out in New York with the suicide of this pervert. However, like most things on the news, and it was alluded to earlier, most of it's not accurate, and that's okay. We know what goes on here, but a credit to our staff for doing what they do, and not to say that something like that can't happen anywhere, because it can. And whenever somebody asks me about it and says, "Hey, what do you think about this happening somewhere?" and my response is always, "I'm glad it didn't happen here, because we're just a day away from something like that happening." And so, we do some things that I think help avoid that. Not to say that it can't, because it certainly can happen here. But getting back to the inspections, we do have an inspection coming up in September from the National Commission on Correctional Healthcare, which is truthfully the gold standard in healthcare in corrections. And we have been accredited for, I believe, 6 years, maybe longer. And we continue to do that every 3 years. They come back in and inspect us again and make sure we're doing what we do and make sure we're doing it right. So not only our correctional staff does a great job, our medical staff in corrections does a great job as well, providing quality of care. We view correctional health care as a public safety or a public health issue. And our feeling is if they are healthier when they leave here, they will be better off not only for themselves but for our community. So that's why we do what we do.
Mr. Lear has a question.
Nope, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Sheriff. I was wondering, because your references to what happened out in New York, what is our level of overtime like right now as far as correctional officers?
There's overtime, but law enforcement agencies, that is normally standard in law enforcement agencies, whether it's police or corrections. It's hard to say, what they're if the information you're getting on cable news is accurate.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about that.
No, I know that, but I mean they're obviously falling back on that as an issue. Do we have overtime issues? Sure, because we have no control over when somebody goes to the hospital, and we have to sit at the hospital with them. Well, that takes an officer out of our jail over the hospital. Well, somebody has to be at the jail and the hospital. So it's, while we try and control it as much as we can, we work with the state's attorney's office to, if somebody is admitted to the hospital with a nonviolent offense, we are always attempting to see if we can't obtain what's called a recognizance bond to let those individuals out so that we don't have to sit over there and limit some overtime. But that always doesn't work. But I appreciate the question. It's a great question because it is. It's an issue everywhere.
Mr. Wheeler, did you have a comment? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
And I'll just touch on one thing because it got brought up, the vigil that occurred on Sunday. I just want to say that when those 300 or approximately 300 people dispersed, our lawn was clean. It looked like nobody was there, so I appreciate that very much. Yep. That's all I got on that.
Any other questions on the report? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Vehicles.
Vehicles. The ever-popular vehicle request. So we have done a great job in this board and the report that the chairman gave yesterday regarding the finances of the county can be taken no other way than positive, and that's a credit not only to this board but to all the department heads, all the employees in the county that are working, because all the employees know the issues. I mean, we've known it when we were going through difficult times. They knew it, and they still did their job. They still did what they had to do to get the job done, not only in our department but in everybody's department. Everybody was short, and everybody stepped up, and we're still short. We all know that, but everybody has stepped up, and we continue to move forward. And again, it's a credit to this board that has been fiscally responsible, and we hope that that trend continues. At least on our end, we're going to do our best to make sure that we that we help. We have, one of the things that we've done in years past, and to give you a little bit of history, vehicle requests, ideally, in past years, we would, in way past years, this is way before some of you were on the board, maybe even before some of you were born, Colton. But we ideally, it would be beneficial from a number of standpoints to say we buy 11 vehicles in year one. Bless you.
Yes.
We buy 11 vehicles in year 2, we buy 11 vehicles in year 3, and in year 4 we start that cycle over and buy 11 vehicles, trade in the first 11, the following year buy 11 vehicles, trade in the 11. The trade-in value is more, the equipment more than likely will be able to transfer in to some other vehicles because, I don't know, these car companies like to make money and sometimes they change the design and we end up having to buy other equipment and it's kind of a vicious cycle. Obviously, when finances get tight, the first thing to go is that major purchase of vehicles. And it's certainly understandable and very understandable in the last, in 13, 14, 15 when things were, we were hoping to pay people, let alone, have a car to patrol in. So we certainly understood it. We have done some things now where in 2017 we purchased 11 Tahoes and we replaced cars that were purchased back in 2011. We then waited a year. We purchased vehicles in 2019 and traded in cars from 2012. And now I'm asking that we purchase 11 Tahoes and replace the 2013s. All of these cars are out of warranty. We have spent, so far this year, I believe we have spent over $140,000 in maintenance on vehicles. And one of the advantages to these vehicles and the purchase of them, there is a 5-year, 100,000 mile warranty on them, bumper to bumper. Well, once we hit 100,000 miles, just like all of us, as we get a lot of miles on us, we start to deteriorate and cars go bad. I'm not speaking for everybody, Colton, but just wait. So things go bad, and it's with your personal car, it's with our vehicles, and so we are looking to purchase 11 Tahoes again with a lease, and in addition to that, not only do those cars take a toll, but we also have investigators' cars who are on call, who are out there going out to crime scenes virtually weekly. We have a number of investigators' cars that have well over 130, 140,000 miles on them, and we would like to replace them as well. Now, the good news is for some reason, Chrysler Fiat, I think is the actual name of the company, is trying to increase their police presence. And Tahoes normally for us range about $35,000 before the equipment comes. And the equipment, I mean cages and things like that. These Dodge trucks are $10,000 less each and would be very beneficial for our investigators. So I am asking for 11 Tahoes and 7 Dodge trucks for our investigators, and 5 for our investigators, 2 for Metro. As most of you know, we do contract, or we don't contract, we have an agreement with Metro. Metro actually pays for officer salary and benefits every year. 2 officers that the county doesn't pay for. So those cars, one of the cars has 160,000 miles on it. Unfortunately, Metro, while they pay for our salaries, they cannot purchase vehicles. The only thing Metro can buy are buses. So they cannot buy a squad car for us to patrol in. In addition, I'm not done yet.
Oh, boy. Turn the page over here.
Well, so the other issue that we have, and although maintenance is, you know, is budgeted, used to be under our budget, is now under the county's, their separate budget with the chairman. They do not have a truck. And there are many times where they need a truck. And credit to Wes, Wes is using his own truck for county business. Now that runs into some problems liability-wise, you know, mileage-wise, and I don't know, you know, all the ins and outs of liability, but I'm sure if we're hauling something and Wes, something happens to that or something happens to the truck, somebody's going to be liable for that, more than likely us. So, and then lastly, for maintenance, there is a Dodge. These Dodge trucks are 1500s. There is they offer a 2500 truck, Ram truck, that actually has a plow on it as well. And we do our own snow removal here. And I don't know how old is our other plow, Wes? Do you know?
I'd say it's easily 20 years.
Yeah. So we are looking to, and these are issues that, you know, with vehicles will, between the Dodge trucks for our investigators in Metro, these are trucks that will last us a significant period of time.
What's the warranty on those?
Same.
Same?
Yep, 5-year, 100,000 mile. So, everybody's sitting down so I can read this number. So all told, and again, this also includes some equipment, which is normal, we have to do anyway. And as I said before, sometimes the design changes and the equipment changes, so you just can't move one cage to another car. So you've got some equipment there, and then we also would like to replace our computers and our dash cams in those 11 Tahoes, because our old computers, Trent, how old are the computers in our car? Yeah. We all know computers don't last 10 years sitting on our desk, so these are computers that are still in our cars from well over 10 years ago. So all told, the total amount is $806,529.
806,000 what?
$806,529.
Comments? Mr. Wheeler?
You sure you only need 11? How about 22? No, I'm just kidding. We had talked about this in the past, and I knew the sheriff was going to give us those numbers. I wanted to let the board know that the intent is when we get a final decision on what we're going to do, is to have this come out of the capital budget. Okay, in the past, we've absorbed it different places, but we'll have it come out of capital, and then we've never had the equipment come out of there as well. That has been something that's come out of the sheriff's budget on his own, on their own. So we would never really truly realize exactly what we were spending until much after the fact, if you had to dig through the line items, you know. So that was part of the intent. The other thing is to establish a revenue line item to be able to take a look at what we're getting on the trade-ins. So we can actually say, look, we see an increase or in the value of what we're getting from going to the auction. I know that if it has the high miles, I'd ask the sheriff on this, you can get maybe $6,000 at the auction for these vehicles. But if you're trading them in before they hit that 50,000 mark or right around that area, you can get sometimes 16, 20.
100,000.
Or, well, no, it's to get the true value out of the vehicle. If you're trading it in after three years, if we get back on this cycle, it's exponential what you get out of it at the auction. So that revenue will go to a revenue line, so you can kind of see, and then the next time this happens, you can say, yeah, well, it worked. We're able to get more money out of it. It's less we have to spend next time. That's the value of getting on this program. If you don't, then you're going to over 100,000 miles, and the value goes in the tank, and so you're continually having to spend full price, if you will, without seeing that higher trade-in value.
Not including the maintenance.
And not including the maintenance. Yeah. So
At 35,000 for the Tassos, and you said 105,000 in maintenance?
140.
140, that's 4 vehicles.
Yeah.
Over this last year, just in maintenance costs.
So it does make financial sense to do this when you can. And so I guess the question is do we think we can get back on the program with our last of the three buys. I think so, but that's a finance committee decision. Here would
Yeah,
be, do
it's-
we agree
Would
that
anybody
we
like
should
to
send-
make a motion
Yeah.
to move this to finance? Mr. Fairfield, second by Ms. Parker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
So I gotta do this again in finance?
Finance.
Okay.
And if you have a copy that Kelly could keep on the record of your quote there, that would probably help for the finance.
You can email it.
There we are.
One other thing, if I could, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I know it's more for building and grounds, but we had talked about the problems we've had with the snow plows in the past. I don't know if everybody remembers those, when
Oh,
it was,
yeah.
the trucks were breaking down, and, you know, it is a problem. So that's not just like, hey, let's go buy a truck for maintenance, and we've got the liability issue, but we did have serious issues with the plow breaking down in the past. So that becomes a problem when you need it. So that's why that's on the list as well.
Thank you. Anything else?
I got
for us?
one more thing, and it's
Oh.
quick. So, if you recall, the county board unanimously voted to rename this building the Timothy F. Bukowski Public Safety Center. While we are sending out, it was on our we put it out yesterday. The date for that is August 29th at 10 a.m. right here in this lobby out here. And I will email the information to Kelly, and she will email it out to the county board members. 8/29 at 10 a.m. It's 2 weeks from Thursday, I believe.
Just looking at my date.
See if you're golfing or not.
That's exactly what I did. Any questions for the sheriff?
All right.
Thank you, sir. Is there any old business to come before the committee? Any old business? Any new business to come before the committee? Any new business? Mr. Legess? Second by Ms. Sekulo. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mr. Rowe, can you come up here for a second?
Thank you.